Maestro Fernando, podemos comenzar.
¿Ya podemos empezar?
Sí. Maestro Fernando, podemos comenzar.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. Today begins a project that we had idealized a few months ago during a meeting of professors from the School of Foreign Languages. After a few weeks of collaborative planning with a great team, finally, our first talk can take place. I thank the head of the School of Foreign Languages, Elisa Quiles, for her priceless support, in addition to all those who have made this possible: Jorge Zavala, Vale Fonseca, Alex Jimenez. This is the first of many more talks to be held in the future. Talks on universal access to information, the teaching of languages and other fields of knowledge, seeks to disseminate the knowledge that researchers from the School of Foreign Languages have generated in recent years. As I was commenting with a group of students yesterday, they know the teaching side of the professors, but they also have a research side, and it is extremely necessary to know what they do and what knowledge is being generated. It is intended to be an accessible format for students and for all the public who can listen and see. Accessible from the point of view of content and the way it is disseminated. At first, we will be talking with researchers from the School of Foreign Languages of the University of Colima, but we will also talk with researchers in the area of language teaching from other universities in Mexico and abroad. As it is permanent, we will also invite researchers from other areas of knowledge from our university, willing to disseminate science in English. And I know there are plenty who can do it well. Without further ado, I would like to introduce today's guest. Secundino Isabeles Flores, better known as Secu, holds an MA in TESOL from the University of Maryland, Baltimore, and a PhD from the University of Southampton. He has taught English for over 20 years to students with different language levels and age groups. He has given presentations at different teacher conferences on a variety of topics related to English teaching and learning. He is interested in teaching methods, techniques, and strategies, especially student-centered ones. Today, I feel happy to announce that last week, he was appointed as a member of the National Research System. Congratulations for that, Secu. With him, we are going to talk about autonomous learning in everyday life. Thank you very much for accepting the invitation, Secu. First, I would like to start asking you, in simple words, how could you define student-centered learning?
Hi, Fernando. Thank you so much for the invitation, and thanks to all the people who are joining us right now in Zoom. Student-centered learning, in a few words, there are different definitions, but in a few words, I can define it as learning that focuses on the needs of the learners, on their abilities, their skills, on the resources they have available. Basically, it focuses on the students, as you know, as the name says, that it's centered on students, on what they need, what they can do, what they want to learn, what their goals are. And based on that, learning happens, okay? And something that is important to mention is that students play an important role. They become responsible of their learning in a high degree. Okay.
So why are you interested in student-centered learning? How these interest raised on you?
Well, I remember that some years ago, I don't remember when, my memory is not very good. Somebody came to give us a course on student-centered learning, basically. And I became very interested on this approach to learning. I think that at some point, this is something that I have been researching, I have been practicing too as well. And I think that is an approach that I use, personally. And in fact, I just realized that my thesis for my master's that I did in Baltimore, it's called free voluntary reading, So I mean, back then I learned about this technique and I became very interested in it. I believe that reading is an important skill that can be developed or that should be developed, and that by doing so, students can acquire the language. And I'm not ashamed to say, but I could say that up until my second year of university, I didn't like to read. I would say that I hated reading. It was boring to me. I'm a very active person. I love sports, so reading was not something I did. But I had a class. It was a literature class, and I was asked to read different literature from English and British. And I became interested in reading. And then little by little, I developed this habit because I see it as that as a habit. And then I realized that by reading voluntarily, because at the beginning I was required to read some text, but then once I got the habit, I got my hands on things that I enjoy reading. And I realized that through reading, I learned a lot. So I think that was the beginning of this interest in centering, having the student as the center of the learning process, on finding out what they like, what they can do, preferences, etc., etc. So, and then again, with this course that I took, I got very interested and I started to implement it in my classes. Basically, through trial and error, I have been learning and developing different things, throughout.
It's very interesting how like a personal interest has become a professional interest and a way of approaching your professional life, right?
Yes. I mean, we say that, we as teachers, we usually use the things that have worked for us. And definitely this is, this is an example of that, because again, I'm very interested not only in using it, but again, it's something that I experienced, and through experience, I said, well, what if I use it with my students in my classes? I don't only use student-centered learning, but I try to implement as much as I can this type of learning, but yeah, basically it emerged from a personal experience,
Okay, I would like to make a pause and say thank you for all those students who are joining us. Thank you very much for joining this talk. In a few more minutes, I will give you some chances to ask any questions you would like to ask, obviously professional questions to our guests. All right, thank you, students, for joining this talk. Sekou, how would you link student-centered learning to autonomous learning? What's the link between these two?
Well, we can say that student-centered learning is a mainstream approach, and from that we have different approaches to learning. For example, cooperative learning is somehow student-centered learning. Autonomous learning, it's based on that. Basically, these approaches are based in constructivism, and the idea that students can create their own knowledge. So it's interesting that you mentioned it, because yes, initially I started investigating about student-centered learning, and then as I have throughout the years, I learned about autonomous learning, and that's something that interested me, a bit more. Let's say, student-centered learning and autonomous learning are connected. There are many elements they have in common. But I think that because of different reasons, and again, because also of my learning style, I think I was driven towards, okay, what is autonomous learning? You know, how it work? How does it work? You know, how can I implement it in my classes? Everything, I think that everything that I have learned, whether it's a teacher's conference, a talk, from my the master that I took, the classes and everything, I try to use whatever I can implement it, you know, in my classes. And I am very, I'm an advocate of autonomous learning, I'm an advocate of independent learning. I believe that it is necessary to foster this type of learning, not only because of the benefits in terms of learning, but because of everything else that also comes with it, you know. So yeah, basically student-centered learning was the starting point, and now I am more into, I mean, I'm working on autonomous learning and how can it be implemented. Yes.
Interesting. Why do you think there is a need to learn independently, or why do you think it's important to learn independently? What's your point of stand?
Yes. Well, there are lots of reasons. Okay, where can I start? I'm gonna address basically that. I mean, academically speaking, there are lots of reasons. Researchers have found on the benefits of autonomous learning in the classroom, in school, learning, etc. But something that I have thought about and experienced and seen is that we need to develop the skills and foster autonomous learning because it would help students develop the skills they need to cope with the changes in life, everyday life, in society. I think that more than ever, things change quickly, rapidly. And it is impossible to be taught everything that we need, okay? And if we help students develop these skills when they are in school, once they are outside in real life, they can apply these skills, okay? And sometimes I think that change is difficult for everybody, you know? And the more quickly you adapt to change, the easier life can be in many ways. I'll give you several examples, okay? For example, here in Colima, if you go to Walmart, they have the self-paying things, you know. When those were first installed, there was nobody there, you know, because people didn't know how to use them, and they didn't dare to try and find out, even though there were people from Walmart, you know, helping them explaining how to use it, which is really easy, you know, they're very user-friendly. But it was, and when I first saw them, luckily I had the possibility to use them in other countries. So when I saw them, I was like, yes, that's fantastic. I can, you know, pay for my stuff more quickly and, you know, get out. And when they first installed those, I was like, I went and there was nobody there. Like, yes, this is great. You know, there is nobody there. I don't have to wait in line. Yeah, it's great for me, you know, because, but I was like, how come that people don't use them? You know, I mean, I've used them before, but how come they don't just try and see, you know, experience, you know, experiment? And again, they're really user friendly. Nowadays, when I go and I see that more people use them, and I think that is great. But this.
But you say, what a pity.
Yes,
More
what a
people
pity.
is using them.
Exactly, you know. There is another example. If you go to the cinema in, you know, one of in Centralia here in Colima, there is a kiosk where you can buy your tickets by yourself, and it's
actually I missed it because it's not anymore.
Is that anymore? But it happened to me that I was amazed to see that there were people in line, like a line of 20, 30 people waiting to buy the tickets, and the kiosk was there and nobody used it. I was like, how come nobody uses the kiosk? You know, you can buy your tickets by yourself. You don't have to wait in line. But I was like, and then I started to say, well, you know, it might be the case, you know, it might be because people, because this is my, you know, hypothesis, because people are not taught to, or they do not do these kind of things, you know, to self-learn. Then if they see something like the kiosk, nobody uses it because they just don't have the drive or, you know, the initiative to see how it works, you know. But nowadays, again, we have experienced many changes. For example, if you're gonna travel, you don't get your you don't have to go to the counter anymore. You have to go to you have to generate your boarding pass by yourself, and it's something that we have had to adapt. And actually, once I was at the airport and there were these old ladies, they went to the counter and asked for their boarding pass, and the people there said, well, you have the machines right there, you can go get them, by yourself. Just with the app or whatever, you can generate them, you can get them yourself. And they were like, no, I want you to give me the boarding pass. And they said, well, if I get it for you, it's gonna cost you, I think it was like 300 pesos. And they said, but don't pay, go to the machine, get it, I'll explain how it works. And they were like, no, I'll pay the 300 pesos, and I was like, I mean, I was just thinking how all these changes, and that have happened so quickly, and they are still happening and will continue to happen, that require us to learn new things and things that we're not going to be there. There might not be someone to teach us these things, so that we need to learn them to cope with the changes, to adapt to the changes. Just to give another experience, apps, for example, to buy food, to get a taxi, all these apps that can be used. It can make life easier, and again, I believe that if learners or people develop the skills to self-learn and not wait for someone to teach them something they need to learn, I think they would cope more easily with all these changes that are happening. I've seen that the latest models in cars, they don't have CD players anymore. Okay, and for people like me, who has the collection of CDs, what do I do with them? How can I play my music?
Well, imagine me, I had the cassette.
Yes. Yeah, but I think that somehow we have, learned, adapted, but nowadays you have to, you get Spotify, get some kind of app to play music in your car, to have it in your phone, to download it, the app in your phone, so that you can then play it in your car. So these changes, of course, you have a friend or a family member who can teach you these things, but my point is that life requires us to learn things, new things every day, and if just think about, Google Maps, if we use Google Maps, it's easy. You can't get lost, basically. I remember that you had those maps, that you would use whenever you had to buy a map of every city or of a city you went to visit, because you would know how to get there.
There were like very thick books.
Yes, exactly.
You had a collection of maps, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You had to carry them wherever you go.
Exactly. And if they block a street, then you get lost, like, what do I do?
I know.
And nowadays, Google Maps, Waze, it's so easy, I mean, they get this changes in technology can make life easier, but of course, you need to learn to download the app, how to use it, which is not really difficult, but there are still people who have not adapted, who have learned those things, Same thing with banking, for example, I mean, it's so easy just to, like, if you need to pay services, if you need to deposit money, you can transfers are really easy, So these things you have to learn we need to learn how to use this apps and everything else, and they can make life easier. And I think that they make the life easier of those who uses these apps and these gadgets. It's easier than those who don't. So I think that that's one of the reasons I believe that it's not only for school purposes, but in life we need to learn, autonomously, not necessarily everything, but the things that I need to learn, that I require from my everyday life. If I'm able to learn them by myself, they can make life a lot easier, So that's why I mean,
so we can relate independent learning with adaptation and change.
Yes, exactly.
That would be like the two. And I was thinking that while you were mentioning all these changes for our generation, it's definitely a change and an adaptation. But what about the generation who have who already have all these And I mean, it's normal for them, for example, to use apps.
Right.
It's normal for them to, so how do you, what do you think of them in terms of change and adaptation?
Right. Well, I think that, I mean, we have experienced a lot of changes, but I think changes will continue to happen.
Okay.
So just like everything in life, you cannot say, now I know enough, right now we have experienced changes in banking and so on. I don't know what other changes will happen in the future, transportation wise, in every kind of way. But also, we need to acknowledge that we do things in a certain way in our country, in our area. But when you go to another country, you need to adapt to all the changes that you will expect or you experience when you go to another country. I mean, I know I've heard lots of stories of people who, for example, they have gone to Japan, they have gone to Europe, and even though we live in the same era, still there are changes that things are done differently. So you need to go there, and if you go there, you need to adapt, and there will be things that are new, and unless you are taught, which you cannot be taught everything, you will have to learn by yourself. So I think that, and because nowadays I think that more than ever people are moving, more than before, and at some point, I mean, it's just, if you go to Guadalajara and you want to use, el metro ligero, like I remember I went years ago and you still, put coins to get the ticket. And the last time I went, there was a card that you have to buy. And so things are changing, and if you go from here to another place, I'm sure they do things differently. So at some point, in everyday life, we will encounter things, something that is done differently to the way we do it. And we just have to adapt, we have to learn, so I think that the new generations, still will experience more changes, but again, if they move, if they go somewhere else, they will also have to learn new things that they probably will need to learn by themselves.
So we can say that independent learning is more like a life learning, long life learning ability or skill, right?
Yes, yeah, definitely. I mean,
to foster that into students.
Exactly. Basically, I think that what's important is to foster among students the fact that they cannot wait to be taught everything, that they should take initiative to learn something that they need, because again, at some point in life, they will need it. But it's not, I mean, it's that aspect of dealing with change, but also the fact that autonomous learning requires students. One of the important aspects of autonomous learning is that students, and independent learning is that students make decisions about their learning. They have to make their own decisions. It's a process, of course. They don't have to make decisions about everything at once, but making decisions, it's a skill that needs to be developed. And that oftentimes when students are taught with teacher-centered methods, they don't have that skill. And in real life, they need it. In life, we need to make decisions all the time. Some decisions are more important than others, but that's something that at some point we'll all face. So that's one example, of a skill that is developed in autonomous learning. So again, just by involving students in decisions that are made in the classroom, eventually when they're outside, it would likely be easier that, for them to make decisions, to make informed decisions, because everybody can make decisions, but make informed decisions, and foresee what the result may be, and then, be able to decide what's best. So that's another aspect that is, I think that is important, and that it's applied in real life as well.
Lovely. So what advantages do independent learners have over those who depend more on other people?
There are several. To mention some, I mean, one of them is they are able to make decisions. Also, as one aspect of independent learning is reflection, and through reflection, the students or people in general get to know themselves and identify what helps them learn, for example, what is useful for them. So if I am given the opportunity to decide or to choose what to learn, if I know myself, I can use that information to make better decisions, you know. For example, I'll give you a simple example. When I am working, when I need to concentrate, I need noise. I need music. For example, I play music, I turn the TV on. I don't watch it, I don't sing the music, the song, but I need noise. So that's something I've learned about myself. So every time that I need to sit down and work and concentrate, I listen to music. I sit down, I get my music, I find music that I like, and so things like that. Students get to know themselves, what they are good at. For example, one of the aspects in regards to assessment is the students are able to choose how they want to be assessed. And if I know that I'm very good at talking, maybe I can choose another presentation so that I can demonstrate everything that I learned. If I'm not very good at writing and I'm asked to write an essay, for example, I might not be able to demonstrate, to show how much I learned, not because I don't know, but because it's not a skill that I have developed enough to show everything that I've learned. But if I know that I'm good at speaking and that I can express myself well, and that it's easy for me to demonstrate everything that I learned, I'm going to choose that type of instrument or that assessment activity to be able to show how much I've learned. So that's another advantage of independent learning, autonomous learning, that students get to know themselves. They know their strengths, their weaknesses, and they are able to analyze, okay, what did I do to learn? How did I do it? Did it work? It didn't work. What changes I need to make? Adaptations? How can I improve my learning process? I think that's an important aspect that students develop, is so that they don't get stuck on always doing the same things. Is they're able to analyze the learning process so that they can say, okay, I need to change this, I need to adapt that, I need to stop doing this, because it doesn't help me. And that will make them better learners, and in the theory says that students can be more efficient learners, so they will not necessarily work more, but be more efficient in their learning, because they know what they're good at, what materials help them to learn, etc., etc. So that's an important aspect, I think. And I believe in general, developing thinking skills among students, it's something that is important, so that they can analyze, whatever they see, whatever they read, draw their own conclusions, and so on and so forth, so that I think that the thinking skills, it's something that is developed in autonomous learning, and that is really necessary nowadays to foster among students as well. And that, again, it's something that it's an effect of autonomous learning.
What about this idea of losing fear of making mistakes?
That's something that is also part of the learn of something that students develop. They are risk takers. It is that the autonomous learners are risk takers, and they understand that learning is a process, and that they are, if they make a mistake, they can spot it, and maybe self-correct at that moment, or if not, just acknowledge that, oh, this is something that I need to change, I need to do better. And that, again, it has a positive effect on learning, because they are aware of, again, strengths, weaknesses, mistakes, and are able to correct them, their mistakes. In this case, if I know I made a mistake, if I don't have the teacher to tell me, how to correct it, that's the idea, that students are able to look for information, find, or even go and ask somebody to help them solve any problems, answer any questions they have. Or if they don't know how to solve something, they can go ahead and ask if they need it. Or for example, nowadays, if you want to learn how to do something, there is YouTube. There are tutorials for everything. So and it has become easier to be an independent learner, because in the past you depended on books, you depended on libraries, where you would get information. Nowadays, with internet, you have access to all types of information, videos, etc., that can help you be independent in your learning. So that's another reason why I think that it has become easier to be independent in the learning, for students to be independent in their learning.
Do you consider that autonomous learning, more than being a approach for language learning, could be some sort of not necessarily a method, but something that can help build personal skills or personal abilities.
Yeah, definitely. I think that again, learning is just one aspect, one benefit of it.
Okay.
But again, all this other the make better decisions, develop thinking skills. It's something that can, is a side effect of autonomous learning. I think it's in a way, I mean, a way of life, perhaps, so that if people who become autonomous or develop autonomous learning skills, I think that they can apply that knowledge not only in the classroom but also in everyday situations. Okay, and I think that to some degree that has an advantage, over people who do not do that, because they can find solutions more easily to problems. They can analyze things, draw conclusions, like I said before. And I think that to some degree, it's a way of life, in a way. I mean, and again, autonomous learning, that being autonomous doesn't mean that you do everything in isolation. It means that you don't have to depend, you don't have to depend on somebody else to, to help you learn. That you can, you can ask somebody to teach you something or to explain something to you, or find other ways to learn. So you don't have to necessarily have a teacher to teach you whatever you need to learn. And I definitely think that, to some point, I think that I have many of the things that I do, or it's a part of my life, if I want to say it like that, to learn things independently, find solutions to problems either by myself or by working with other people, so definitely I think it can go beyond the classroom.
So somehow you have provided very key aspects or elements of ideal autonomous learners, right?
Yeah.
But for people who are listening to this talk, and for students, first semester, second semesters, well, first or third semesters too, what would be like the first 3 steps, we can say that, to start like the path on becoming an autonomous learner?
I think that one, if it's for a student, it is important to know themselves, to become aware of themselves as learners, so that they can know what their preferences, what helps them learn, what doesn't help them learn, what they are good at, okay, and use those natural abilities or skills they have already developed to learn. Okay, so for example, if I know that I'm a morning person, I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna try to do all my academic activities or learning activities in the morning, because I know that maybe in the afternoon I'm not my energy, wears down, I'm not as focused, etc. So, but I need to know whether, for example, I'm a morning person, I'm an afternoon person, or a night person. If I know that I'm a night person, then I'm gonna, perhaps, I don't know, take a nap during the day and make some time at night, organize my time at night so that I can, if I done, that's when I'm at my best, use that time to focus and do my work, so students need to know themselves, need to know what they're good at, okay, and use that. If I know that I'm shy, I don't like to talk, maybe what I can do is, but if I'm good at writing, use that skill that I have developed to do work, for example, or to do tasks. If teachers give me options and one of them has to do with writing, not pick the speaking activity, but pick the one, the writing activity, because if I know I'm good at that, use that. So it's important students know themselves, so to make better decisions. Another important aspect is to dare, to dare to ask people, to dare to make mistakes, to dare to ask questions, I think that is really important. And as maybe at the beginning, you're gonna need a lot of help, you're gonna ask a lot of questions, but little by little, as you develop, you're able to find information by yourself. Maybe at the beginning, you don't know where to find information, and maybe you ask a teacher, you ask a classmate. But eventually, if you develop the ability to search for information, then it will be easier, and you won't need to ask people or as many people to find that information. So, but it's important to again, that's another step. Not be afraid to ask, not be afraid to make mistakes. And I think that take risks. And in the end, there's not much to lose. So definitely that's something you need to keep in mind. Okay, and especially if they're learning. Learning is a process. And through trial and error, a lot can be learned. And I think that a third step is that to start to make their own decisions, because I can ask a teacher and my teacher can tell me, and this has to do with knowing myself. If I ask a teacher, how can I improve vocabulary? And he tells me you have to draw every single word that you want to learn. But if I know that my drawing is really bad and I don't like to draw, I have to say, well, okay, yeah, that's a good option. That's a good suggestion. But is that really what I want to do? Is that really what helps me learn? So start to make their own decisions, not be afraid to make decisions, and again, this has to do with knowing themselves, and and just make their own decisions, but also do the actions that result from making decisions and take responsibility. So if, for example, if I am allowed to decide how I'm going to learn vocabulary, if I said, okay, I'm going to write sentences. Well, I need to write the sentence in order to learn the vocabulary. It's not just about making decisions, but also if I decided to write sentences, I have to write the sentences. If I decided to do drills, I have to do the drills. So it's not just about making decisions, but also being responsible of the consequences of such decisions, So it's not just somehow everything is connected, but in order for me to make better decisions, I need to know myself, So and not be afraid to make decisions, because again, eventually in life we have to make our own decisions for many things, and that we can say that the classroom, if we use this type of learning in the classroom, it's a kind of a safe environment to some degree, to make mistakes, learn from the mistakes, but be able to develop these skills.
Interesting. I think there are many points from where we can approach autonomous learning or independent learning for example, from the point of view of family, from the point of view of teachers, from the point of view of school or institutions. And well, I think there are many words to say about it, but we don't have those too many words. Well, we perhaps we have them, but we don't have the time for that. But interesting. Thank you very much for sharing. Before I ask the audience to ask any questions, I would like to, I know that you have just the beginning of 2022, you did your Viva, right?
Yes.
Okay. Congratulations for that.
Thank you.
Could you, in a few words, could you please summarize some of the main findings or conclusions about your thesis?
Well, my thesis was on autonomous learning, and I created a model.
Your your research.
Yes, basically, I created a model. I put into practice a model to introduce autonomous learning, and I implemented it. And I found, different things. But one of the things I found, and which is consistent with the research I read, is that it takes time. It takes time to develop the skills, and actually, you can never say I'm autonomous. Now it's a process that basically never ends, and it's gradually developed. But it has to start somewhere. So, but it takes time. Also, it needs at the beginning a lot of help is needed from the teacher, from a more knowledgeable one, from somebody. A lot of scaffolding is needed, so that students can little by little develop the skills, become confident and so on, to be autonomous. I also learned that students at first reject it, especially if they're used to learning with teacher-centered methods. At first, they feel like the teacher doesn't do anything. The teacher is not working, but because they do everything, so sometimes students feel like I'm doing everything. What are you doing? So there's a natural rejection to a change because it's a drastic change. But once they begin to see the benefits and they understand, how everything, the results of it, they understand. And therefore, because of that, autonomous learning needs to be introduced gradually. You cannot just, overnight come and say, now you're going to learn however you want to learn. You decide how you're going to learn. Students are going to freak out, or anybody, it takes time, and what I found is that different activities, techniques should be introduced little by little, maybe once, I don't know, one activity a week, perhaps one day for homework, you let them choose, you give them 4 options or 3 options, and then you let them choose what they want to do for homework, and so they can make a decision on one aspect only, okay, and so on, and and once they are used to that, then you introduce another aspect, and so on and so forth. So little but again, introducing autonomous learning little by little is something that is suggested to avoid rejection and to avoid this sudden change in the learning process. And I found also that students, in the end, students agree that they enjoy learning through this, with this approach. They like to be able to make their own decisions, to decide how they were going, what materials they were going to use to learn, what activities. In the treatment, students were allowed to decide how they were going to be assessed. They were able to select the grading criteria. They were able to select the assessment instruments. They were able to select the deadlines. This happened over a year, so and I think I kind of pushed it a little bit, but it took a year to get there, sort of, so it takes a long time. But again, the benefits, students, I interviewed the students and they all mentioned that, they were pleased with this approach to learning.
So it's a very long journey and long way journey.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Well, for the rest of the time, I would like to open the chat for questions. Or students, please open your cameras. We want to see your faces, please. So you can either throw a questions through the chat, or also you can, well, it would be great if you open your microphones and your cameras so we can see your faces. And students, please make questions. Feel free. Be autonomous.
Exactly.
Emmanuel Rodriguez, what do you think, Emmanuel? Would you like to say something? Ask any question? Danny? America? What about Natalia? Natalia, would you like to ask a question to Professor Secundino? Odalis, Citlali, Lucia? Please, Brianna and Hema. Yeah. Okay, we have a question from Natalia, right? What advice can you give to new students who find it difficult to learn another language?
I think language learning is one of the areas where the more independent you are, the better or the easier it's going to be to learn another language. Learning another language takes a whole lot of time and a whole lot of effort. Okay, and as a I am a language learner, English learner. But if, for example, if I know that I don't have time during the day, or I have little time, and maybe I need to improve my language skills. I need to know what resources I have available to develop, my language skills, what I can use, how much time I have. So, for example, if I like to listen, if I watch TV, if I watch Netflix, if I have those resources available, then I should watch Netflix, with subtitles, for example, okay? So every time, and I have to make a commitment to myself, not to the teacher, not to anybody else, to myself, and say, Seku, every time you watch TV, you have to, watch TV in English. You have to, has to be in English with subtitles, because you might not, because if I only listen, I might not understand everything, but if I listen and read, I'm gonna get more than if I only read or only listen, But I have to make that commitment, and that's where being autonomous, kicks in, I need to know what I have available, so that what I can use, what are my strengths and weaknesses, if I need to develop my speaking, what can I do? Do I have friends who speak English? Maybe not. What can I do? Well, do I have books that I can read? Okay, so I'm gonna read out loud, so I can hear myself. I can practice and improve my pronunciation and fluency. Okay, so and again, if I listen to music, okay, if I like music, well, maybe I should start to listen more music in English or in French or in whatever language I want to learn, but I have to make that commitment. So I have to decide, and see, do I, nowadays, everybody can access music in English, for example, okay? So maybe instead of just listening to music, I'm gonna listen to music and get the lyrics. Nowadays with Spotify, you can listen to music and read the lyrics at the same time. YouTube, the same thing, but I need to make that commitment to myself. I need to make that decision. I need to organize my time and say, every day I'm gonna listen to music in English. I'm gonna watch something in English. I'm gonna read the subtitles and learn something. Or I have to read something. Every day I'm gonna read for 20 minutes something, so that I can improve my vocabulary, my grammar, and my reading comprehension. So the idea is that as to learn a language, it takes a lot of time. So it's not enough to what I get from the school, but I have to find other resources, other activities that I can do on my own time. Maybe if I don't have time at all, well, maybe I just download. My playlist will include only music in English, and so while I'm on the bus takes 30 minutes from my house to school and back. So that's 1 hour that I could listen to music in English. So I have to find ways to solve my problems. So and nowadays, luckily, there are many things that we can access. It's just a matter of what do I need, what resources do I have available, and how can I improve my language ability.
Lovely, thank you. Very interesting. Well, we have Aaron Radillo, our former principal. He has like 20 questions. It's only one.
Okay.
Aaron. Well, I'm going to read it just like he
Yeah.
wrote it down, right? I believe this is a skill for everyday life, and it is for sure really important one. Thanks for your great talk, Secundino and Fer. Just a few questions. I feel it's like 20. I know this is a process and it takes time. How much time do we need? How can we develop these skills in our classroom? Well, I think I'm going to stop with that.
Yeah.
How can we develop these skills in our classroom?
One of the one strategy that is used a lot is to give students options, so that students
Provide different
exactly so
options.
that given options, thinking about different types of learners. So not tell them you can write a story, write a letter, or write a email. All of them involve writing, but maybe you can write a story, you can tell a story, you can draw something, or you can, give them different options that involve different skills, different abilities, so that, if I'm not good at speaking, I'm going to choose something that, that involves speaking. If I'm good at writing, I'm going to use that. If I'm good at drawing, I can maybe come up with a story, illustrate a story. So give them options, and introduce new ways of learning. Because if we ask students to decide how they're going to learn vocabulary, if they have only done drills, when I give them the option to choose how to practice vocabulary, they're going to do drills because that's the only strategy they know. So introduce other ways to practice and learn vocabulary or reinforce vocabulary, so that they can then, if I tell them now you can choose what you want to do, then they will know, okay, I can do a mind map, I can draw words, I can do drills, or I can write a song, for example. but
Okay.
they need to learn other ways of learning, so then they can make decisions and they can make other choices.
So giving options is the key.
Yes,
Okay.
it's a way to
Well,
introduce.
Aaron has like 20 more questions, but I'm going to give a chance for, thank you, Aaron, for all the questions. I'm gonna give the questions to Sekou after the talk. And probably later you can talk to him.
Sure.
I'm going to, well, Odalis has a question.
Mhm.
She said that she cannot turn her camera on, but she has, I remember when I was in first semester and we had learning to learn, aprender a aprender, I believe,
Mhm.
and most of the students were sick of a subject, ha ha ha. So even though you teachers were trying to develop these skills in us, the students continue to do the activities because they had to. So how could we actually make autonomous learning meaningful? Could we do that, or this will be a decision totally up to them?
Well,
That's a
still,
good one.
yeah, it's a tough one. Autonomous learning becomes meaningful when the students make their own decisions, when they decide how, in this case, it can be how they want to learn. It's not possible to let them, well, to some degree, they can choose what to learn, but because there is a program in most cases, but they can choose how to learn. But in order for them to choose how to learn, they need to know different ways of learning and they need to know themselves. So once they, again, we can help students become aware, develop self-awareness, get to know themselves a little bit more, and also learn different ways of learning. And then once they do that, we can allow them, or little by little, allow them to decide how they want to learn. So that students, one of the principles is that one principle that is connected to learning is that students enjoy what they do, they're going to learn more. So if I need to learn grammar, and if I'm good, if I'm a musical learner, maybe through music I'm going to learn grammar, or maybe I'm going to write a song. I'm going to do something that I enjoy. I've seen, for example, students who are very good with computer, and design and things like that. And sometimes I give them a task and they create fantastic, colorful, very attractive products. And I'm like, wow, and they spend a lot of time, but not because they like my class or they like the activity, but because they love to design things in the computer. And if they do that, then if they spend more time, more energy on the task because it's something they enjoy, then they're going to learn more than if I ask them to do something that they don't even like. So it has to do a lot with students making their own decisions and finding what they like, what they enjoy, their preferences, and giving them the opportunity to choose what they want to learn, how they want to learn. I think that is key, not necessarily impose. Again, options are good when students do not know what to choose. But if somebody says, teacher, I'm gonna draw something because I'm gonna draw a story. Fantastic, and I think that oftentimes we are amazed by the things the students do when we give them the chance to create their own, products. So I think that's key, that allow the students to choose how they want to learn, and also how they want to show us what they have learned. Assessment, autonomous learning is not in the learning process, but also in the assessment process. Okay. So that's key, I believe.
Interesting. Well, students, please throw as many questions as you would like, because we have one expert in Mexico in the field of autonomous learning. So please use it. You can know a lot from him. Well, just a few more questions. Well, I have another question from. I'm going to take it from Aaron. He is. Do we need to do it as soon as they get into the school system, or at a specific level, for example, university?
Yeah. It is
The sooner the better.
The sooner the better, yes. I had the opportunity to go to this school in Guadalajara. It's called Pier 4. And they are using autonomous learning, and it's fun. It's just mind-blowing to see kids in kindergarten, 20 different kids doing 20 different things, because these kids, the day before, they plan what they're going to do the next day. So they arrive to school, they get their agenda, their a notebook where they wrote what they're gonna do. They see what they're gonna do, they get the materials, and this is each one individually. They don't all do the same thing. So it's fantastic to see this 3-year-old, 4-year-olds, like tracing letters, and they go, and then after a certain amount of time, they raise their hand in silence. The teacher comes, checks what they did, and they say, okay, you're done. And then they go put the materials away. They look at their agenda to see what is next. They get the materials, and they start learning, doing whatever they plan they were going to do. So it can be done at any time. The sooner the better, obviously. But it's really unbelievable, how these kids are already independent, how they are autonomous already. And then they are also, at the end of the session, they sit in a square kind of thing, and the teacher asks, how did you work today? And it was fantastic to hear kids say, I worked well, I did everything that I planned, I think I did a good job today. Or say, I didn't work very well today. I was not feeling, I was kind of lazy. I didn't finish everything that I did. And the teacher say, okay, so what you need to do? Well, tomorrow I need to focus more. I need to pay more attention. I need to concentrate, and these were like 3 or 4-year-old kids who
Very aware.
Exactly, and can say, this is what I did wrong. This is how I can do it better. It was mind blowing, so can it be done with little kids? Yes, I can't imagine if they follow that same, path, what they're going to be like, when they get older. Obviously, it's great, but also you have kids who have skills and that you need parents who are also ready to have kids like that, kids who question you, kids to ask you questions like, why do you tell me not to smoke, but you smoke? Why do you tell me not to drink, but you drink every time that you go to a party? It's not easy to have kids who question, who reflect, who analyze,
Dangerous minds.
Yes, in a way, So yeah, but it can be done from a very young age. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. One last question before we say goodbye. This comes from Professor Cass. She always throw questions.
Yeah.
Okay, as you went through the process of changing your mindset, way in the day, from teacher-centered to student-centered, what was your biggest fear or concern as a teacher?
I think
Thank you.
my greatest concern was if I was doing things right, am I doing things right? Am I using am I going at the right pace? Am I using the right strategies? Am I doing things too quickly? Will students reject what I'm doing? Luckily, I can say, that I had some advice from people that knew this approach, and I got feedback, but also through trial and error, and reading the literature.
Literature.
Exactly, reading what people have done in other places, how they have done it, so I got an idea of what to do, what not to do, and just through. But again, my context is different to their context, so but it was really useful. But I had to try, to trial and error. So my fear was that that I wasn't doing it properly, and sometimes I wasn't, but I observed what I did, the students' reactions, and through experience, I believe I have learned about how to introduce it, still in the learning process, still implementing new things, still experimenting, but I think that through experience, we can learn, and because the students are different every time, so it's every time, you have to find out how to implement this type of learning.
Okay, very interesting. Well, time flies.
Yes.
Well, it only remains me to say thank you, Sekou, for this
Thank you.
interesting talk. Thank you very much to the people I already mentioned. Thank you, the head of the School of Languages, for make this possible and support these project and this this interesting way to presenting and this disseminating information, which is, as I said, a different phase of us, right?
Yes.
Usually students know us as teachers, as very active, and sometimes like teachers. But we have this phase of researchers who also they also need to know who we are and what we do and all the process that we have been through to get to this point. And thank you very much for being here. I hope next time more students can join us. And I know this was a little bit in a hurry, but I'm sure that next year, well, there's one more this year. Professor Katz will also chat with us about what are you going to talk about, Maria? Can we just give an introduction, a brief introduction of your chat, your talk? Have you thought about it? Or not yet? Your microphone.
She can't turn the microphone on. She just told me.
Oh, he can't use it?
Yeah, no.
Oh, okay. Well, next our next guest will be Maria Katz, and soon you will have some news about what she's going to talk about. All right, but please tell the rest of your classmates to join us. Thank you very much for this first chat. It was very nice to having you, and have a nice what is it? I don't know what time is it. Have the rest of the date.
Yes.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.